Who is the best team in the Sun Belt? It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sun Belt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, hosting afternoons on Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP in Mobile, covering the South Alabama Jaguars, and prior to that in Lafayette, Louisiana, covering the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. And doing mornings on Sports Radio 105.5 WNSP. Today's episode of Locked On Sun Belt is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. Okay, so who is the best team in the Sun Belt? The season sort of ends a little sooner than I expected with the championship week at the end of February and into March. So we're about halfway through conference play. I think, 4 weeks in, and we got 5 weeks left. So almost Thursday will make it 4.5 weeks in and 4.5 weeks left to go. So who is the best team in the Sun Belt? Obviously, it's, the three teams at the top have separated themselves, and all are very good. Marshall and Southern Miss, two of the great stories in the league, along with ULM. We'll see what happens with ULM moving forward, but we've kind of been fixated on them with, only winning 5 games in the Sun Belt, not more than 5 games since 18-19, and so they already have 5 wins thus far. But you got Marshall 6-2, they're 17-4. Southern Miss is 6-2, they're 17-4. And the Cajuns, the Ragin Cajuns, 6-2, they're 16-4. All of them are on, little win streaks, although the Cajuns have the longest win streak right now in the conference at 6. They actually lost their first 2 games on the road against Coastal and Old Dominion. Southern Miss has won 3 in a row, and Marshall has just won 2 in a row on the road. They've won 5 overall. So let's take a look. Let's start off with the Cajuns and go through some of their wins, because they have not played the toughest of all schedules thus far. They have taken down Southern Miss at home. That's a really nice win, and that was a comfortable 75-61 win. And they also took down ULM, who gave them a little run for their money, but it kind of pulled away at the end, 86-73. The guys telling me, the Ragin Cajun guys telling me before the South Alabama game that maybe they should have beaten ULM by a little bit more. But, since then, they've sort of struggled a little bit. At South Alabama, that game could have gone either way. Excuse me. And South Alabama loses 79-76. Cajuns win. Arkansas State, who is at the bottom of the standings, in the Sun Belt, the Cajuns, won 80-71. And I'm probably not going to say too much about Texas State, because they're a tough team to play. They're just a tough team to play, no matter if you're the Cajuns or South Alabama or whomever. They beat Texas State 60-51. They also have, we know, one of the better players in the league, and maybe the best player in the league, and that is Jordan Brown. Jordan Brown, second in the league in scoring, right behind Marshall's Tavian Kinsey. 19.8 points a game, and rebounding-wise, he's up there as well. He is 6th in the league. I don't know. Can you pause this? I think so. Okay. So Jordan Brown is going to be among the league leaders for players of the year. And then, do you get it to a point where you're looking at scoring and you go to Marshall and you get Tavian Kinsey and Andrew Taylor sort of canceling each other out? Isaiah Moore, we've been over that with South Alabama. He's really good, but because South Alabama's struggling, he's not going to get many votes for that. And then you do have, and we'll get to him, Southern Miss's Austin Crowley is a 5th in the league. And you got Texas State's Mason Harrell, but he's been hurt the last couple of games. All right, so you got the Cajuns were preseason number 1 and in the league, preseason pick to win the conference. And Bob Marlin goes, he literally said, you know what, Dave, that's just because we got the most guys coming back. Nobody really knows how good we're going to be. Nobody knows how good the rest of the teams are going to be, but everybody knows who we've got coming back. And so we get the benefit of the doubt. And let's be honest, the Cajuns have been pretty good. All right. They have, their losses on the road are disappointing to them, I'm sure. Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina, they had the Coastal game won and let that one slip away coming from behind and kind of letting that one slip away late in the game. And, they fell behind Old Dominion too far and couldn't quite catch up. All right. So good wins for Coastal and Old Dominion. The Coastal one's probably a little bit more disappointing for the Cajuns. But other than that, so that's 2 losses. Their other losses at Drake. Drake is pretty good. And they lost to Texas. Texas is not quite as good as Texas would like to think. And they have their own situation with their coaching staff. But the Cajuns took it on the chin in those 2 ball games. And that's it. They have 4 losses, 2 on the road in conference and 2 out of conference. They've been pretty good. And so we'll see. They do have, let's see the interesting schedule they got coming up. I mean, it's Troy, it's Georgia Southern. They do go, here you go. Here's the gauntlet for the Ragin Cajuns. Ready? Marshall at home. Actually, it's pretty good rest of the schedule coming up for the Ragin Cajuns. They host Troy. They host Georgia Southern. They host Texas State, and they host Marshall. So now they get 4 straight games at home. But they're playing Marshall, then they're going at Southern Miss. Then they're at Troy. They host ULM. At James Madison, that'll be a first for the Ragin Cajuns. They do finish up, relatively easily with Arkansas State and South Alabama at home. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Presume they'll finish up strong. James Madison, one of the higher scoring teams in the league. But you got a pretty good gauntlet there. Even Georgia Southern, Texas State is tough. That was just proven, right? They just beat them 60-51. They host Marshall, but at Southern Miss and at Troy. So you got, the beginning of February is going to be very difficult for the Ragin Cajuns. All right. So that'll be interesting to see as we move forward. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll look how Marshall has stacked up. Again, anytime you win on the road, it's huge, and they have done it as of recently, including they have won 5 in a row overall and won their last 2 on the road. But now it's time to tell you about FanDuel. It was. Okay. There we go. It's working. All right. The NFL playoffs are here. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay. Glad to have FanDuel aboard moving forward. All right, so let's take a look at Marshall. We've really got a chance to see them the last few, I guess last week would be mostly it. I should mention the Cajuns. Here's going to be a couple of questions for the Cajuns and Marshall. The Cajuns Marshall is second in the league in scoring, almost 82 points. The Cajuns just over 80. The problem is defensively, they give up a lot of points. Cajuns are second to last in the league, giving up 70 points, and Marshall is right above them, giving up about 69.5. So we'll see if that comes into play, because that's always been the case with the Cajuns, that they score a lot of points and then they try to get a couple of stops later on. Let's see what do they do with the schedule here? What I was looking for. See how they're doing for Marshall compared to what the Cajuns have done. Because, again, what Marshall's done and going on the road and, long way, first time, Texas State, and then was it ULI or Arkansas State? They went to overtime. That was a crazy game going to overtime for Marshall. But let's see so far. Again, they lost to Queens College. Very odd. Very odd. They have not had the hardest of all schedules. They did beat Ohio of the MAC. They did beat Toledo of the MAC, but they got a win against Glenville State. They did lose at home to JMU, and they lost at Statesboro. Their preseason schedule was not all that tough. Tennessee Tech is in there. Miami of Ohio, more MAC schools. So they played 3 MAC schools. So, they're getting tested. Remember, I'm not sure, and we're trying to get Dan D'Antoni on to the podcast, but I'm not sure anybody could have seen what Southern Miss has been doing and what Marshall has done. We're going from 21 losses last year to 17 wins this season, right? This team is going to, what do we got? 8 more games? Is that what I said? Right? I mean, they're going to win 20 games, 22 games. And then if they win a couple of ball games in the Sun Belt Conference, they could have 25 wins. They're going from 21 losses to 25 wins potentially. And maybe a berth in the NCAA tournament if they win the Sun Belt tournament. So I can't really blame Dan D'Antoni for maybe not loading up on a bunch of teams that would necessarily be losses, because I don't know what I have, right? I think the players are good. I think I have good players, but they weren't last year as a team. So we're going to try and build our confidence up before we hit the ground running, and that's what they've done. They've done a really good job. And again, they have 2 of the top 3 leading scorers with Tavian and Taylor, Tavian Kinsey and Andrew Taylor. And so, Marshall is right there to try and be the best team in the Sun Belt. It would be fascinating if Southern Miss and or Marshall, they could be playing each other easily in the Sun Belt Conference Championship. We'll see how that is, how they get paired up, right? These teams are all going to start playing each other a little bit moving forward, but you do have to give it up to Dan D'Antoni and his crew for turning things around and fast, right? That's it is really impressive that is the case. All right. So let's take one more time out. We will come back after this, and we'll talk about Southern Miss. Jay Ladner's crew rocking and rolling as well. Remember, 26 losses last year. They have 17 right now. All right. Before we come back, just want to ask you guys, first of all, thanks very much. We are growing. We are getting more subscribers very slowly, but surely. And the views are up. So we do appreciate that at Locked On. And again, the bigger the podcast, the more views, the more serious other people take it. I know a lot of people in the Sun Belt and around the Sun Belt, and they watch and they are interested, but you got to prove it to other people that people are watching. So if I can get more likes and more comments, I will be happy to respond to any comments. And if you guys subscribe, it would be a big help to the podcast. So I would appreciate that. Just hit the little subscribe button and then the little bell that you'll know when you get a new episode. But they drop at 3 a.m. So I don't know if you want to be notified at 3 a.m. But you'll be sleeping anyway, so what you wouldn't be able to know. But I do them the night before, and they're all posted and ready to go at 3 a.m. both audio and video. So you'll be notified, but you'll be sleeping. But it'll be there when you wake up. So like we say, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. So we do appreciate that you come by and you watch. And again, we are starting to get more comments and more likes and more views. And I do appreciate it if you would subscribe both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from audio-wise, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. We're everywhere. So Locked On, just search Locked On Sunbelt wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we're back, and let's talk a little Southern Miss. Again, Jay Ladner's crew from 26 losses to 17 and 4. They have won 3 ball games in a row. And, South Alabama gave them all they could handle last week, and they came up with a big win. They very easily could have lost that basketball game last Thursday. And last Thursday. And they hung on to win the basketball game. I was talking about Southern Miss getting revenge. And, they did with a win. But South Alabama beat Southern Miss last year by 30. I thought maybe that would be the case in this one, but it wasn't. South Alabama's issue is getting off to a good start to begin the ball game and to begin the half. They always seem to be there at the end, but they have a tough time making the game-winning play. All right, so the last loss for Southern Miss turns out to be Marshall, and that was a little more of a romp than I thought it was going to be. Marshall with a 89-67 win over Southern Miss in Huntington. And the only other loss in conference for Southern Miss is the Cajuns. So they have played both, and they have played ULM. They did beat ULM in Monroe 65-60. But it's another good basketball team. Let's check out the rest of the schedule. They took care of James Madison on Saturday. So just like Marshall and just like the Cajuns, they swept the week. They do get Arkansas to start off with, and actually it looks like at home. And then Texas State at home, which they are drawing a lot better lately, is what the reports are. That's a big deal that they're drawing like 4,000 to 5,000 at home in Hattiesburg. So good stuff for the Golden Eagles. They are getting Texas State. We'll have to see if Mason Harrell comes back. Texas State's going to be tough to beat regardless with or without Mason Harrell, it appears, giving teams all they can handle just because of the style of play, because they do slow it down, but it's going to be tough for them to actually get the wins without Mason Harrell. All right. Then they're at Troy, at Georgia State. They host the Cajuns. They host ULM. They are coming here being Mobile, taking on South Alabama, Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, Texas State. So there is, it's a pretty balanced rest of the schedule. And of course, you do have Austin Crowley, who is the fifth leading scorer in the nation, or fifth leading scorer in the Sun Belt. Sorry. And him and Isaiah Moore's battle on last Thursday in Hattiesburg was special. Crowley had 25 and Isaiah Moore had 22. So it was really a nice battle to watch as the two guys went back to back. But right now, I don't know who the best team is. I'm sorry to have that lack of answer. I guess I would default to the Ragin Cajuns. They seem to be getting a little bit more help across the board, not just Jordan Brown with the Greg Williamses of the world, but each of these three teams has the serious potential to be Sun Belt regular season champ and to be Sun Belt conference champion. The thing is, though, it comes down in terms of ends up being a week in Pensacola. and we'll see how, who's healthy, right? I've seen the Cajuns as the best team in the conference, and somebody get hurt, and it didn't go their way. I've seen South Alabama going to be able to compete for a Sun Belt championship, and somebody got hurt, and it didn't go their way. So it all matters on who is healthy at the time, and we will, keep an eye on as many guys as we can. As we mentioned, Texas State's Mason Harrell got injured in the first half on Thursday and against Marshall, and then didn't play on Saturday. So, it's guys like that, and then all of a sudden, who knows what's going to happen with the top guys. So that is an issue moving forward for anybody, obviously. And so it's not necessarily the best team that wins. It tends to be the healthiest. Okay. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. We'll continue to look at the basketball and do a little bit of football. I'm trying to get football coaches for Senior Bowl week so we can have some episodes available and raring to go during what is a very busy week here locally in Mobile. All right. We'll, of course, eventually start to preview this weekend's action as well, Thursdays and Friday's action in the Sun Belt. I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been listening and watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.